Hello and welcome to Transitions. I'm your host, Antoinette Zloty. Starting one's own business is a major transition, no matter who you are. Our first guest, Kevin Toney and Yorquin Walters, own their companies. They'll share their own stories and they will tell us about how they came to own their own ventures and offer some perspectives on Black-owned businesses. After we speak with them, we will be joined by Stephen Obeng. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So tell us about your journey into business.
Well, first of all, I guess I have to say that I probably got my entrepreneurial spirit from my grandmother. So back in St. Vincent, my grandmother had one of those mechanical ice cream making machines, and she used to make ice cream, and then we'd go around to all the cricket matches and the soccer games and sell ice cream and roasted peanuts. So I think that's where I got my entrepreneurial spirit from. So when I finished university, I was going to be a teacher, and I did that for about a year. And then one day my roommate brought home a magazine. It was called Entrepreneur Magazine. I just started flipping through it, and then reading some articles, some interesting stuff. I sent away for some informational material, books and stuff. I started reading more and more, and I really got into the entrepreneurial part of it. And one summer I went down to New York City, and I was just wandering around, and I saw a lot of products in New York City that weren't being sold in Winnipeg. And I thought, well, why not? So I started importing goods from New York City and going around to all the community festivals and selling them. And that's how I got my start in Entrepreneur Magazine, in entrepreneurial lifestyle. And then I decided, well, you know what, if I'm going to do it, I really want to learn more about it. So I started doing a lot of reading. I spent a lot of nights, weekends at the library downtown. I think I read almost every marketing book in that library back in the early 90s. And that's how I got my start in the entrepreneurial lifestyle. I've tried a lot of things entrepreneurially. I failed a lot, but that's part of the entrepreneurial lifestyle. You have to keep going. Okay, to be an entrepreneur, you got to be really, really persistent. That's the one character I think everyone needs if you're going to be an entrepreneur, because a lot of things, your ventures you try, you're going to fail, but you have to have the ability to pick yourself up, move on, and keep going. And that's the key to my success. Is I've always been able to pick myself up and move on, pick myself up and move on. And that's, I think, a really big important thing that people need to know about.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because there's always a challenge too when you have a young family. And I believe that that can cause people to maybe take a safer route. How about yourself? Like, how have you been able to balance family demands with business? Yeah.
So I made a conscious choice after I graduated that I was going to delay the family life. Okay, I mean, it was a plan. Okay, so because I knew I probably wouldn't be able to do that successfully. So I was single for a very, very long time until my business was at a point where I believed that I could have a family and a business at the same time. Now, I'm very lucky that I work out of my home, right? So my eventual goal is to have what I call a laptop lifestyle. And basically all I need is a laptop and an internet connection to run my business. Now, I'm almost there because I can run my business from almost anywhere now. And I think that's probably where I want to get to. So, you know, I'm not looking to have a storefront per se, you know, like an office building. Okay, I want to be able to travel down the road with my laptop and conduct business anywhere I am. And that's kind of like what I'm working towards.
So could you take us through just briefly what steps you go through when you're approached by a client or a prospective client? Like how does that happen?
Okay, so well, normally what happens is I do a lot of reaching out. So what I do is if a client contacts me, I have a list of questions, right? So I do a lot of coaching, a lot of marketing consulting. So I have a list of questions. I go into an organization and I do an evaluation of what they're currently doing, right? And I ask a whole bunch of questions to find out what their goals and objectives are from a business and from a marketing perspective. So once I garner that information, then I can make recommendations on how they can improve their businesses, right? So for example, I can go into a business and I can find out, well, they're not doing any email marketing. email is a very cost-effective way for almost any business to promote themselves. A lot of small businesses don't do email marketing, which is unbelievable. So after I've go through my checklist, my evaluation, I can make recommendations. Do you need a website? Yeah, I do, but we haven't updated it in 5 years. Well, maybe it's time for a new one, right? So I can go in and make recommendations on what they're supposed to do. So now my business is kind of like twofold. So I do a lot of coaching and consulting. And then I also have something what I call a done-for-you services. So if I say to you, Antoinette, you should be doing email marketing. And she says, well, I don't know how to do that. Then I'll say, okay, I'll do that for you. Right? So I have a done-for-you services where I can actually do the work for you. I find that a lot of consultants and coaches can tell you what to do, but they don't know how to do it. And that's what differentiates my coaching consulting business from a lot of others, is because I can tell you what to do, and if you don't know how to, I can do it for you. So that makes a big difference, because a lot of times you ask customers to do things and they never get done. You know, procrastination, people don't get around to it.
So I want to hear a little bit from Yorquin as well. Yorquin, is your situation a little different? Tell us.
Okay, well, I would say that my because I do graphic design, photography, videography, and also a lot and website development. However, how I got started was that, while I was in college, a lot of people kept advertising different stuff, but they needed someone to do the graphic design. And after learning graphic design using Photoshop from my brother, through my brother, because I really love my brother, so I loved doing everything that he was doing. I started doing flyers and stuff, and then also my brother, when I visited him in Panama at the time, in 2004 or 2005, I picked up photography as well from him. So I learned graphic design and photography, and at that time I was doing IT. Sorry, at that time I was doing IT, and as such, merging all three and started doing, I actually changed from information technology and switched into creative communications. And so I started doing video production, and I started doing motion graphics and stuff like that. And then at that time in 2010, when I actually started the business, basically the imagination, and that's Imagi with a J, the imagination, and also Walter's Weddings, my brother had come back to Jamaica, and we started the businesses together, and it has been growing over a period of time until 2 years ago, in 2018, we were awarded the third best wedding photography company in the Caribbean.
Wow.
And second in Jamaica through the Caribbean Wedding Industry Awards. And during that time, it was the first year since I had migrated to Canada. And it was kind of tough because, you know, new wife, new place, and also not having a family yet, but planning to start very soon. It was a bit challenging, and it still is challenging, but the plan is to grow out the business, and even right now we're even extending into digital music distribution.
Wow.
Yeah.
So both of you are in very similar fields.
Exactly.
You've, in being involved with wedding photography, I imagine you have found quite a lot of stories and a lot of situations that you could share with us. But when I look at yourself and I ask you to say something like, would you do it differently? Would you do it any differently than how you did it?
So when I first started my business, I was working full time, and I was working my business part time. So if I was to look back on sort of like my life, I think maybe I would have worked a little bit longer. So I wouldn't be, I would have probably worked a little bit longer. That's kind of the only thing I think of before I sort of went into it. But the other hand of that is, when you're starting a business, if you've got one foot in the business and one foot out of the business, it tends not to grow as well. Like, so sometimes you just have to jump in and say, you know what, I'm going to start a business, and you got to focus on that. Sometimes when you're focusing on running a business on the side and you're also working, Sometimes what happens is because you've got that cushion with the job, you tend not to do the things that you really need to do to really grow the business. So I got to the point where I said, you know what?
Let's jump.
Okay, so my last real job was I was the marketing manager for an IT company, right? And that didn't work out. And I thought, well, what am I going to do now? I said, well, you know what? I'm going to just go right into the marketing and build my own business as opposed to always looking for jobs from other people. And so that was kind of like my thing. So I kind of got pushed, but I always had, every job I had, I always had a business on the side doing something. I always had that for years and years.
Well, you're really driven to that. Like you're very motivated, very driven. Both of you are very, very committed. That's what I keep hearing is a strong commitment on both of your.
You have
your
to
part.
be, if you're gonna, like I always tell people, right?
24/7, right?
It is. It's really easy to start a business. It's really easy. But growing a business is really difficult. It takes a lot of work, a lot of commitment, a lot of dedication, a lot of patience. And most people don't have the patience it takes. Because we live in a let's have the rewards now kind of society, instant gratification. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be disappointed a lot.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're just going to take a little break now, and we'll be joined by Stephen, and we'll hear some of his perspectives as a person who doesn't own a business, but certainly, like myself, has been one of the recipients of services through businesses. So stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.